Now, the place, what you're looking for, nothing else counts. It's very fresh tracks, and if you want a big buck, you want those tracks to be, the hoof length only to be 3.5 to 4 inches in length. 4 inches is a big buck. You get that one, he's Pope and young. Really. It'd be really unusual. He only has to score 145 points. That one with 4-inch tracks, he's Pope and young. That's the buck to get. But that's not a season-long place to hunt him. I mean, once he finds you there, that's the end of that spot. So keep that in mind. So you'd be better off to keep scouting, or if you're determined to use food plots, keep that in mind. That's no better than any other feeding area where you might hunt, because it's going to only be big buck effective for 2-3 days at the most. And you have to be pretty darn good for that to happen. And you must be really tough for a whitetail on the ground to recognize as a hunter in that area. You know, I think sometimes think deer think that human in that tree is guarding that area. He doesn't want us here, you know. And but you know, with all the experience they have, it doesn't take those older bucks to realize this is a dangerous place, so I don't want to be here anymore. Okay, so for the last 2 weeks in September, the very best spots are feeding areas with lots of fresh tracks. Now, there could be a doe and fawn feeding in the same area. That's not uncommon. Yeah, they like some of these special areas just as well as the bucks. It could be several. If it's a larger feeding area, you can have does in the home ranges surrounding them, and in which case they'll share that thing. They might not like it when they get close to one another. One might kick the other and say, you got to go feed over there. Don't be around my fawn here, or whatever. So anyway, but what you're looking for is those big tracks, 3.5 to 4 inches in length, and or very fresh droppings. Now, by mid-September, most buck droppings will be clumped. You know, they stick together. The doe droppings will be individual pellets on a puddle of them, but buck droppings will be all stick together. And there's probably a good reason for that, but it's sort of like, almost like buck diarrhea. You know, they're soft and sticky and they stick together. But if those droppings are anywhere from 5/8 to 1 inch in length, that's a buck. 5/8 is 2.5-year-old, but 3/4 to 1 inch, and some of them get to be 1.25 even in length and shiny. That's a big buck. You get one that has 1 inch droppings, probable Pope and young buck. And it's when you find those, you're not guessing. This is absolute proof of that. You find 4 inch tracks and 1 inch dropping, shiny. A buck is feeding in this area, and then you might find one here. Here's some 3 3/4 inch. Gee, he's probably a 3.5-year-old buck. You know, pretty good. 3.5-year-old. He'll have pretty good antlers, pretty nice antlers, and maybe worthy of being on the wall. But they just won't be as thick. You know, the diameters won't be as great on a buck. That's it. When they get to be 4-year-old, boy, then they're getting a lot of mass in them. Besides, you know, much bigger diameters. 5.5, they're at their prime, and 6.5, they're starting to go downhill a little bit in the wild. But those are big bucks, you know. So that's what you're looking for, a place where they like to fight. Now, you might find in those places where patches where the ground is all scuffed up, you know, torn up by sharp hooks, where 2 bucks are battling, and they'll be kicking up dirt and soil and leaves. You know, obviously something's been going on here. Look at this, it's all pockmarked with hoofs in this patch. And evidence of bucks fighting in that area. That's, you know, those tracks and those droppings and those patches like that. Tell you, this is where you want to be. Yeah, but don't count on being a great spot all the rest of the year until January 1st. You know, for archery hunting. You know, and I've mentioned this before, but you know, when I scout and I find a place like that, worst thing you can do is start making a big deal out of it. You know, like, oh, I'm going to make a blind over here. I'm going to build a blind, or I want to be in that tree, and you want to cut a lot of branches and down from that tree. And you see, I see this so often in these deer hunting videos you see on TV, where a guy's sitting in a tree and there's absolutely no branches around. He's sitting there, it's like he's on a telephone pole. And he's wondering how come, gee, nothing came by here today. He was expecting a big buck, but nothing came here. Well, you can't, that was okay back in 1980 to do something like that. Even better in 1970, boy, in 60s, but in 60s nobody did except me, I think. But in the 70s, that was okay. But it's sure not okay today. My gosh, you're just almost guaranteeing you can't see a big buck from that tree stand if you're fully exposed. You got to be really well hidden. And don't forget sense, trail sense can build up, like I told you. And the more you mess around there doing things, like maybe cutting shooting lanes and doing all kinds of other stuff there, and the same thing with trail cams. If you got a trail cam and you got a picture, oh, great big buck out here, and you keep going back to get more pictures. You go day after day and change your cards and go back, oh, there he is again. By then you're getting so you can't sleep at night because, boy, this big buck is in this area. But somewhere along the line, any great changes you make when you put up your stand, or I set it up at ground level with a blind or natural cover, the more changes you make and the more trail scent you lay in that area that's fresh, especially if you keep going back there every day or 2 or 3 days, or 4 days if you keep it fresh, the more likely it is that any big buck that's coming to say, hey, the one big buck will say, hey guys, we got to go find another place to feed. This is dangerous here. It's going to happen. So, my boys and I do, we find a spot and say, we'll look around, oh, there's a perfect spot for my ground blind. I'm using my stool. And we'll sit there on the ground, and that's perfect. Shooting from a school is really easy with a bow, and you're a better shot usually when you're using a bow, when you're sitting, believe it or not. But anyway, when I find a spot, well, that's perfect, and usually what I find, I don't have to do much. There's some dead branches here, maybe get them out of there, and this deep grass, I'm going to stamp it down where I want to sit, so when I come here, I can step into there, and that's all set to go. I don't have to worry about making sounds if I move my feet a little bit and change my angle for firing the bow or gun. And get out of here. Get out of here quick. Now, don't be looking all over. You know, when you get a feeding area like that, and you walk into it, and you say, well, here, look at this. Here's a 3.5 inch hoof length. Oh, look at that. There's some 3/4 inch long dropping, shiny. And then maybe, oh, man, look at over there. There's some 1 inch droppings. There's a big guy here. That's enough. That's enough for me. I want to get out of there as quickly as possible. Here's where I'm going to sit. I might decide, well, I'll make a little circle and come back over on that side. In case the wind's from the north or northwest, I want to be over here on the crosswind on this side. If it's coming from the south, I want to be crosswind over there on that side. I might find 2 or 3 spots at a large feeding area where I want to sit. You know, you can rule one spot on the end of the feeding area if it's a big one, and it'll still be okay on the other end. But usually, you know, once they find it 2 places, that's the end of that spot. And you'll notice that. You can go there first day, oh geez, there's a big buck out there feeding. And it's too far away, can't shoot. I wish he'd come over here, and he starts this way, and then he goes out into the wind, and next day you can't wait, you're going to get back there. And he's not here. All the does that were here, and the fawns, they are still feeding here, and here's a yearling buck over there. But where's the big guy? No longer there. Keep this in mind, you know. Big bucks use other deer, you know, does and fawns and yearlings and other younger bucks all the time like radar. They come to their feeding area and these deer out there feeding, and they're all acting as if there's nothing wrong. They're feeding and chewing. One deer's always got his head up, maybe just a fawn even, because they learned to do this early. Acting as a sentinel while the others got their heads down feeding, and if that finds something, they might go shoot, make a snort. Then they're all up looking around. If those deer are not acting as if there's anything dangerous around there, and the buck watches them for a while, he might watch 15 minutes. And just to be sure he's smelling, I guess it's okay. So finally he'll walk out there. But so when you hunt big bucks, it's not just a matter of trying to avoid alarming that big buck, a big buck. You got to avoid alarming any of those other deer. If those deer will start snorting and that buck's around and hears that, oh, there's something dangerous, I'm not going there. Or he peeks through a hole in the trees adjacent to the thing, and he looks out there, and those are standing there with their ears up. They're looking over some way, sniffing the air and watching and listening. They detected something dangerous. They're worried about it. They're looking around for whatever it is that made the sound or the smell that they are smelling. They're sniffing. No, I don't want to go there either. Or let's say they went bounding away, snoring. Well, I hear that. That's that's no doubt. I'm not going there. There's something really dangerous over there. And that scent, that ammonia-like odors that those deer that are pouring from the tarsal glands, the tufts of hair become erect when they become greatly alarmed, alarmed enough to raise their tails, fanning their tails, even halfway. Those tufts become erect right away, and you can see that. They're sticking out there, look like balls on the inside of their hind legs, at that, where the ham hock, the lower part of the ham hock comes right there. That last straight leg going on the hook, just above that, right there. Anyway, when those are erect, that scent is pouring out there, and it's kind of an ammonia-like odor. And any deer that's downwind in this big triangular area, because it spreads out as it goes down, they're going to smell it and say something very dangerous is over there. Well, it only has to happen once a hunting season to convince a buck, a big buck, to feed somewhere else. Now, yearling bucks, yearlings make mistakes like that. There's so many things that bucks do that gets them into trouble, and they're probably the most vulnerable whitetails in the hunting season. Yearling bucks are, because of that. They've got this buck tendency to be aggressive toward one another, and less fearsome. Yet when they finally discover they're in danger, they want to be with mother, and because of that, they race to the mother, go to wherever mom is, because they don't know what to do, and that puts them in trouble too. They're not paying attention to scents along the way. They're not necessarily moving into the wind so they can avoid ambushes, things like that. So, well, there you go now. Now, a lot of you guys, I know what you're going to do. You're going to go out there, even if you have food plots, you're probably going to do it. You're going to go out there and put all kinds of doe and heat lure scent around your stand side. And you're thinking, they're helpless. Those bucks, they smell that. They gotta come. No problem, I'm going to see big bucks. It was that way once. I can remember the days when I was doing a bunch of field video work to produce a 12-hour video series called Whitetail Hunter's World. 95% of the bucks that were in that video were there because they had responded to doe and heat lure scent. Big bucks, all sizes, yearlings, all sizes. And boy, we had a lot of bucks in that series. That was really good for them. It took 2 years to put it together. But anyway, it's not that way today. Nowadays, older bucks, I was from 3.5 to 6.5, and like I said before, very few survived their 7th winter, but bucks in that range, they've smelled it all. And when they smell doe and heat lure scent out of a bottle or a wick, and human scent is floating through the same triangular downwind as that, they aren't fooled by it anymore. They don't want to come to that. They know that's a danger. Wherever they smell human scent, and you know, in regards to what anybody said, if we haven't learned it yet, there's nothing that can completely wipe out human scent for deer hunters. It's been tested with canine dogs. They can find hunters using any of these things. The clothing, any gadget you can find that's supposed to eliminate scent. They can find humans using that as quickly as humans not using it. But it helps. I still think that's something you should use regularly because it does reduce human scent. And the less you smell, the less the response will be when a deer smells you from downwind. Unless they happen to be right up there and say, oh my gosh, there's a human. Snort, snort, I'm getting out of here. But if he's at a safe distance downwind, no problem. That's a stand hunter. Okay, so anyway, if I was going to be out there bow hunting, I wouldn't use any lure scents. I'm sorry to say that, you guys, but there are times I would use it, but not before bucks would start making antler rubs and ground scrape in mid-October. Then it's a different story. We'll get to that on the future YouTube presentation. But for now, we're talking about the last 2 weeks in September. Leaves don't start falling until the 22nd. The first leaves to fall are the yellow leaves of black ash trees. Some leaves don't fall until much later. Even quaking aspens, they'll be much later. They get all yellow, beautiful colors in the fall, and the maples with the bright crimson, beautiful flowers. But leaves. But to begin with, boy, I want to hunt a feeding area with tracks of mature bucks, tracks and droppings of mature bucks. That's where I want to be. And I want to be on the crosswind side. You don't want to be on the downwind end because that's where your fresh trail scents are going to be and that's where your airborne scents are going to be. Yeah, it lasts 4 days. And the older deer always approach feeding areas from downwind, you know. And they're against the sky is kind of open out there where it is. Gee, that's kind of open sky there, and you got a tree, but there's this big black silhouette up there. You know, it's big. It's not a squirrel. It's not a bird. It's not even a bear. It's a human. And even a lot of does, older does, know that. And older does, some of them live to be 14. They've had a lot of experience. So you don't see all the does in the woods either, but they're young. You see some younger ones who still don't know everything they should know to avoid humans. But anyway, so there you go. That's what I would recommend. I would recommend using no lure scents, hunt feeding areas used by big bucks now with the kind of signs you find maybe out there a week early, like today, or 2 weeks early before you start hunting. But get out there early, because after 4 days, your scents will be pretty much faded away, your trail scent, and you'll be all right. As long as you haven't been going back day after you put things together and then spend a lot of time doing it. Okay? So, there you go. You want to do well at the beginning of the season. You want to get that big buck you saw in your trail cam picture. Remember now, that buck lives in a square mile. He isn't pinned to that spot where you got that picture, and maybe he just passed there. He was just passing that area when he got the picture. And for the next 2 weeks, he won't even pass there at all, maybe. Maybe going to wherever he's going. He's going to a feeding area, for one thing. But he's exploring, too, and getting acquainted with all the does and fawns and yearlings, other bucks living in his square mile, you know. And he's not being aggressive at this time of the year, but he's getting to know them. And he wants to know, when breeding finally begins, he wants to know where those does are going to be. He wants to know where they feed, where they water, where they bed. That buck wants to know those things. So he doesn't have to waste time looking for them. When he wakes up and went, oh, there's a doe in heat. And it's over that, and he could smell that doe way on the other side of his square mile home ranch. And you know, he probably knows just at that point, looking over this, well, I know exactly where that doe is feeding right now. And because he's been exploring, he knows where all these things are. and he goes straight there, taking the safest route, you know. Place, trails that provide good cover, and not anywhere close to a previously discovered stand hunter, you know. So that's kind of important too, because that's going to happen. Older bucks are, you know, they're smart animals. Much, you know, big bucks, for example, they won't gravitate toward areas where there's been a lot of shooting, where they're hearing human voices. They want to be where it's quiet. Why, even ducks and geese know how to do that. You know, you don't have to be a great big, you know, a goose doesn't have to be as big as a deer with a great big head and a larger brain to be able to understand that's not a good place to go. Ducks and geese do that all the time. And if they can do it, certainly deer can do it, and they do it. So keep that in mind now. Now, what you're getting an idea about here now is that maybe it's a good idea to use more than one stand site. Now, that'd be a lot of work if you decide you have to have a food plot at every one of them. There's all kinds of them. And move. Well, I guess if you can do that, and maybe if you own private land, you can do it on private land, do all you want of that. But it might hasten older deer to abandon that range early. You know? And meanwhile, too, what you're doing is you're training 2.5-year-old bucks. You know, you decide, oh, I'm not going to shoot a 2.5-year-old. No, I want an 8-pointer or better, bigger, older buck. And so these 2.5-year-olds go by, they're smelling your trail scent, and then they get over here and they're not even watching, don't even want to look at them. And they look up, oh, geez, there's a hunter. You're training him. And then he starts leaving there, and next year, he'll never forget what he's learned the year before. You're training. So by the time he's a 3.5-year-old, he's already pretty knowledgeable about how to identify and avoid you. And he'll never forget your personal odors, the way you hunt, the trails you use, the stand sites you use. They never forget. They're dumb about those kind of things. Okay, with that now. But all I can tell you to get ready for the beginning of the archery season this year. So, things to think about. Things you might want to try that are different this year. Things that you might think, well, maybe I should try what Dr. Nordberg's been telling me about. And it sounds good and sure logical when you think about it. And you know what? It might take a year or two before you finally realize, you know, this is a good way to hunt. Look what I got this year, you guys. So, with that, I'll say thank you for watching. Look for my next YouTube presentation, which is going to be all about hunting farm area bucks. There's lots to know about that. And look forward to seeing you there. And remember too, you know, what I just told you is just a little page or two of what you find in this book. This book is going to be your buddy for the rest of your life once you have one. And you guys that already have them, and I'm sure thanking you, it's been pretty terrific sales. You'll be reading this book every year until you finally have to hang up Big Boomer and say, I'm too old for this. So, you really will. And I guarantee you that. I guarantee you it'll be that way. So, thanks for that too, really. You know, I feel so good when I know I have given hunters a good education about hunting whitetails, especially older bucks. So, and it works. I mean, my boys and I have never had such good hunting since 1990 because of what's in this book. It's all there. So, so thanks again, guys, and good luck now. Good luck this coming when your archery season begins. But think about what you're going to do this year. It might be a little different. And I know it pays off a lot for my boys. Now, every time we do something different, it pays off. So, we'll see you. Okay. See you guys. Be sure to visit my website. Here's the link. Here you'll find links to my blog posts, my Twitter account, my YouTube account, my Amazon store with links to my ebooks, my son's eBay store, a money saver if you're ordering from Canada or other countries, my website bookstore, and much more.